Well, the Sheriff's Department claimed today that it has access to Homeland Security data that says more than 30 undocumented immigrants with criminal records have moved into the county. It's a claim that now has the attention of Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart.
Couple concerns of ours.
For nearly an hour, Collier County deputies had the congressman's ear. Then this claim caught his attention.
Coming out of DHS's own law enforcement database, just in Collier County in those 9 months, we're talking about 31 individuals that came to the county with a combined total number of arrests of 72 felonies on their records and 122
kidding.
And 122 misdemeanors.
And you were not given a heads up ahead of time. This is insane.
Immigrants with felony records technically aren't supposed to be resettled in the U.S. It's possible they didn't have identification and DHS couldn't verify their histories. Congressman Diaz-Balart had this reaction.
You're going to see crime rates going up if you have this attitude from the federal government that felons should just be released in communities.
Now, to be clear, we have seen no proof of these numbers. The Sheriff's Office claims that it got the data from the Department of Homeland Security. A DHS memo shows that 11 million undocumented non-citizens could be removed in the U.S., but they can't because of lack of resources. Now, the Biden administration says that it is reprioritizing who should be removed. In the newsroom, Dave Elias, NBC2.
The man charged after a chase with Border Patrol ended in a deadly crash has been released from the hospital and booked into jail. State police say Elton Gaslium avoided a checkpoint on State Road 11 near Deming last month. Border Patrol pursued him, but say he drove the wrong way in traffic. His SUV veered off the road, rolled, and caught fire. 10 people were in the car. One woman from Ecuador was killed. Gaslium and several others were seriously injured. He is facing charges including murder, child abuse, and evading arrest.
Border as migrant apprehensions continue to show no sign of slowing down. U.S. sector agents released a video today of 171 migrants they encountered yesterday morning. Agents say they encountered the individuals illegally on the west end of the U.S. sector's area of operations. Sector Chief Chris Clem stating that the groups of these sizes have become more and more of a common occurrence. In the U.S. sector, stopped a convicted child rapist from entering further into the United States. Agents encountered Edgar Antonio Gutierrez Martinez Monday. A records check revealed he had felony convictions for first-degree child rape and incest. The undocumented man was turned over to the U.S. Marshal Services this morning to face prosecution.
He's come to the monitor. Jorge, good to see you, as always, my friend. There was some video that you had earlier of smugglers being paid just out there in the open. Are these guys getting more and more brazen?
That's what we're seeing here, Leland. So right here, I'm actually in the Yuma sector. I'm in a location known as The Gap. And the reason that it's called The Gap is you can literally see the gap of border wall. And these human smugglers, Leland, are actually coming up to even to the Colorado River and guiding these migrants across illegally into the United States. You can see in that video the Cuban migrants paying cash to that human smuggler before making their way into this human sector. And actually, Leland, as we're speaking right now, right behind us, we actually have a group of Haitian migrants walking along the dam through the Colorado River. So just in about 5 minutes or so, they're actually going to be here at the Yuma sector crossing illegally. And that's what we're starting to see here. We were speaking to Border Patrol agents, and they said that they actually been seeing the huge influx of Haitian migrant influx here in the Yuma sector, that they're starting to come in here. So it's not just states like Texas that are being impacted by the border crisis or the huge Haitian migrant surge. The Haitians are starting to make their way here into Yuma. Like I said, Leland, just over my shoulder, we can see now those Haitians are actually walking through the water in the Colorado River. And like I said, they're about just 5 minutes and they'll be here in Yuma, Arizona.
Once they get into Yuma, what happens to them?
Well, what's going to happen, Leland, is they're just going to wait out here and they're actually going to wait for the Border Patrol. So these are the migrants that actually want to be apprehended and they want to be processed by the Border Patrol agents. So one thing that we'll see here in a bit is the Border Patrol is going to come, take down the information of these migrants, and then transport them to a facility and most likely release them to the United States, just like what we saw when the Haitians under that bridge, when Mayorkas announced that 12,000 of those Haitians living on the bridge got processed and released into the United States.
It's stunning how it just happens live on television, and this is not unusual. When we were down on the border together in Mission, we saw the very same thing. Some want to turn themselves in, which conceivably this group is going to. This person probably did not want to turn themselves in. Also in the Yuma sector agents arrested a child rapist that illegally entered the United States on Monday. Are you hearing from the Border Patrol that it's difficult to to check and to process everybody and deal with everybody as they're overwhelmed? Are there child rapists who are not getting caught?
Yeah, so the sources here are saying that the agents here in this sector have been overwhelmed just because of a huge spike in increase. Yuma last year in the month of August, they've only encountered 694 agents. Compare that to August 2021, they've encountered over 17,000 migrants. That's already a 2,000% increase. And agents say that the yet is worse to come as more Haitians are going to be trickling in. And just one more time, Leland, like I said, those Haitians are getting a little bit closer here, making their way through that Colorado River, and they'll be here in Yuma, Arizona, and shortly. But like I said, the Yuma border agents are expecting the worst as the influx is starting to
we weren't able to put this up earlier, but it's a call for the smugglers being paid. It doesn't seem that it requires a lot of smuggling to walk across a river. Is this more of like a tithe because the cartels control the river, or what do these smugglers get for their payment?
Well, here what we're seeing is that smugglers get their fee just to at least direct the migrants and get them to this location. This is a location that they have nicknamed called the Gap in Yuma. And just like I said, it's called the Gap because you can easily see the huge gap in border wall. And we're still trying to find out information of how these migrants find out about this new route here. But this is one of the new routes here that agents are telling us. And we're not only running into Haitians, we're running into the constant flow of Central Americans, Venezuelans. We've also met some migrants coming from Nicaragua and Cuba as well that are now taking advantage of this route. Yeah. But you can see there, Leland, those Haitians are getting close here to the Yuma, Arizona soil here, and they'll soon be here on American land.
Yeah. As you point out, so many people from all across South America and the rest of the world saw what happened to the Haitians under the bridge and are now headed towards America. Jorge, great work. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
The very first civilization that migrants come to when they walk through the Darien Gap is this village behind me of Bajo Chiquito. And it's about 400 Indians who live here. They have no running water or electricity. But today they're receiving 800 to 1,000 migrants every day coming through the jungle into their village. And it's turned the village into an open pit sewer. The migrants come from all over the world, and the majority right now are from Haiti. They've heard that pregnant women and families with children get preferential treatment when they get to the U.S., so record numbers of children are being forced to make the deadly 6-day walk through the jungle. Many, like these Haitian kids, arrive in Panama without their parents, leaving the government to determine what to do with them. ¿Cuántos años tienes tú? 6. Tú tienes 6 años. ¿Y ella? Lucila Velasquez is the wife of the mayor. She says the children suffer the most.
Hemos llegado a la cantidad de 5,000 habitantes aquí. En los niños que ya que vienen 8 o 10 días en ese camino de la selva del Darién, pasando hambre, se mojan con la lluvia, por cuestión de la naturaleza, obvio que no podemos detenernos, ¿no? Y lamentablemente hay pérdida de vida de niños atravesando ese territorio de selva.
So we've been here about an hour, and this place is an absolute madhouse now, like nothing we've ever seen here before. They're coming nonstop out of the jungle, always in very bad shape, and they're trying to get them out of here as soon as they can. So they put them on boats and send them downriver to the camp down there, which is also full. The ones who were in the camp the last time I was here have already gone to the United States and are part of the record numbers that they're seeing at the U.S. southern border right now. And so judging by what I see behind me, those numbers are going to explode because there is a large glut of migrants that are making their way north, much larger than there was a couple months ago. Despite an August agreement between Panama and Colombia to limit the daily number of migrants entering Panama to 600, the vast jungle makes enforcing that agreement almost impossible.
Es que estos se van a entregar ahorita, luego aquí como este rollo, se van a entregar para el norte. Ok, mire, súbase aquí. Y mire, ahorita.
The human smuggler was asking who I was, and that he's going to explain to them when they enter themselves into the United States. So we're actually still here in Mexico, and that's Arizona over there. So we're actually here still in Mexico, technically.
Okay, súbase. Mire, oiga, vamos aquí está el rollo. Aquí, ahí está su mochila. Mira, aquí está vereda. Gracias. ¿Ya veo que están ahí? Aquellos también se creen que se van a entregar, varios vienen como él llega a Estados Unidos, viene a pasearse aquí, ya es parte de Estados Unidos aquí.
These are 3 Cuban migrants who are also taking the same route here in Yuma as the Haitians and Central Americans. This area of Yuma has been hit with a huge migrant surge. They're saying a 2,000% increase compared to the same time last year. And that right there is Arizona, and that's the Gap. And here we see 3 Haitian adults with 3 young children making their way to the United States. Reporting in Yuma, Arizona, in this border sector here, it's nicknamed the Gap because of that gap right there. So that's the border wall here, and we see those 2 spaces of gap. We're getting early reports of Haitian migrants starting to make their way into Yuma, Arizona after the 15,000 Haitian caravan arrived in Del Rio in late September. Here we just witnessed 3 adults and 3 young children cross illegally into the United States and are now here awaiting Border Patrol. When I went to go speak to the Haitian migrants, they actually didn't speak any Spanish, which we've been seeing is a common theme here with Haitians coming from Chile. But according to these migrants, they do not speak Spanish. So here they are waiting for Border Patrol. And we'll be here reporting at the Gap in Yuma, Arizona.
And as the southern border prepares for a massive migrant surge, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and Attorney General Merrick Garland all traveling to Mexico today to discuss security issues. Bill Malusian is live at the southern border with more this morning. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Dana. Good morning to you. One U.S. official who notably will not be making that trip to Mexico today is Vice President Kamala Harris, who we all know has been put in charge of this border crisis, which continues to get worse. Take a look at this video we shot here last night in Roma, Texas. We embedded with the National Guard out here, the Texas National Guard. Roma is one of the busiest, if not the busiest spots along the border for cartel activity and human smuggling activity. The National Guard here has soldiers all over the place as well as observation posts all over the place. They're keeping an eye out for runners and human smugglers. And within a matter of minutes, while the sun was still up, we started seeing rafts coming across the river with those cartel human smugglers bringing illegal immigrants across the river. Texas National Guard was able to go down there and turn one of those boats back. But this is something we were on the lookout for all evening long. National Guard has a lot of nice equipment. They use night vision. They're able to scan the river, excuse me, and look for anything that looks out of sorts. But eventually, in the later night hours, we started seeing a constant stream of these rafts and these human smugglers, and they were bringing across hundreds of family units. You'll see the smugglers, they weren't afraid. One guy was shirtless. He was laughing, making jokes to us, saying, "Money, money, money." He was rubbing his fingers together, making the cash symbol. These smugglers aren't afraid. They're bringing hundreds of people over at a time. And it's, again, mostly these family units. They were being dumped out onto the shoreline by the dozens. We talked to one man. He told us he spent $12,000 to bring over him, his wife, and his child. There was an unaccompanied girl, only age 10, who came across completely alone. And then take a look at these photos right here. This is what was on the shoreline as these boats were coming across. There were well over 100 people waiting to be across. You can see it with the thermal vision from the National Guard. You can see a second photo here. They're able to watch these guys during the night as they are coming across the river and bringing their human cargo over. Ask them why they're not able to arrest them on the shoreline. They say it's a safety issue. They're worried the other smugglers will take it out on the migrants, potentially flip a raft over, and it'll turn into a rescue operation for a bunch of little kids. Take a look at this last piece of video right here. This was remarkable last night. We witnessed automatic gunfire going from Mexico directly into the United States. The National Guard soldiers we were with, you can hear them kind of reacting, saying, "Whoa, holy bleep." They say this is suspected cartel gunfire going indiscriminately directly into the United States. They said it was going above one of their observation posts, kind of near the border wall, but incredibly rare to actually see direct gunfire from a machine gun going into the U.S. like that. This was the second volley. I didn't get my phone out in time for the first volley, but pretty wild to see that. And to wrap it up here, the National Guard soldiers told us multiple times in recent days, armed cartel members with AK-47s have stood on the opposite side of the Rio Grande from them and have taunted them, have racked the slides on their guns, and have yelled to them in Spanish that, "Oh, we should just shoot you soldiers." So tensions here along the Rio Grande, along the border, obviously going up, and that cartel activity in the city behind us, it's still there. We'll send it back to you.
Wow. Bill, that looked like tracer fire. And if the video's correct, from left to right, that would be from south to north, as you described, from the Mexican side. What would they be firing at?
We don't know. So in past days, the soldiers have told us there have been a ton of cartel gunfights here in the city behind us. It's called Ciudad Miguel Alemán, one of the most violent cities. We don't know if that gunfire was from a Mexican drug cartel shootout or if they were just shooting across the border as an intimidation factor above one of the observation posts. We don't know, but you're correct. That was tracer gunfire. You can see the red tracers, and typically that's every few rounds is when you see one of those tracers. But the soldiers told us they suspect it was from an M240 machine gun, or potentially, because the tracers were so slow, it was potentially a .50 caliber machine gun. So they don't know exactly, but you can kind of hear the reaction of the soldiers in the background watching it with us. They were pretty shocked to see that.
It's a remarkable report. Bill Malugin back on the border today. Thank you, Bill, for that.
Now, I'd be careful what they wish for, because they might get a response.
Let's bring in, if we can, Lieutenant Christopher Oliveras from the Texas Department of Public Safety. Lieutenant, good morning to you. You just heard Bill Malugin's report. What's your reaction? I'm quite shocked, but for you, is this like every other day?
Good morning, Sol. Thanks for having me. So Bill's right on point.
Sure.
This has been taking place since March, when this crisis started, and because of the failure of the federal government failing to step in and secure the border, and also to address the fact that we do have a crisis on our hands. The fact of the matter is that this is taking place daily. Thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants are coming across. We have drugs pouring into the country, and now we have these cartels that are getting even more bold. Just within this past week, we've had several incidents where we have heavily armed groups of men with tactical vests on the U.S. side taunting our National Guard. And these are suspected cartel operatives. So this situation, this crisis right now is escalating. And it's all because right now the federal government is failing to address the fact that we have a crisis and they're not securing the border. But Texas is stepping in, and we will take action. That's what we've been doing since March, under the direction of Governor Greg Abbott, by launching Operation Lone Star, which is a state initiative, launching state resources to the southern border.
Well, you know, Lieutenant, the governor, you mentioned, sent a letter to the president basically asking him to appeal the denial of help from FEMA, a denial of an emergency disaster declaration. Is that purely political? Because to me, this is a disaster.
You know, it is. And I don't like to get too involved with the politics of it, but
Sure.
It is. It is. You know, the fact that you're turning a blind eye to this crisis right now, and it's continuing to escalate. We're seeing tactics that have never been done before in previous years. And I've been in law enforcement for 20 plus years. I worked along the border my entire law enforcement career. I've worked through different administrations, different governors. And I can tell you right now, this year, we're seeing tactics, we're seeing trends that we've never seen before, because these cartels, these human smuggling organizations are getting even more bold now, because they're making millions and billions of dollars a year. Just as Bill alluded to, $12,000, that's just one family. So we're allowing these cartels, these organizations, to profit off of this crisis. And that's something that we don't understand as a state agency, but we're going to continue providing resources and showing support for our federal partners, and we're going to take action.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you are, because the administration sure isn't. Lieutenant Oliveras, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We appreciate it, and stay safe.
Well, let's head south now. Top American diplomats in Mexico today for high-level talks with their counterparts south of the border. And the border is the focal point of the discussion. NewsNation correspondent Joe Collier is live in D.C. So, Joe, the talks come at a pivotal point in relations between the two countries.
Nicole, in fact, Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his counterpart and even the Mexican president all acknowledged today that at this point, it is a critical moment in our shared history. And there was a lot that they wanted to discuss. At the top of the agenda list, the migration surge at the border and also cartel violence on both sides of the border. So let's take those one by one. On the migration situation, back in July, there were 200,000 people that came through Mexico to the U.S. border. And in August and September, the numbers didn't get much better. Plus, you had the Haitian surge as well. Those 15,000 Haitians that were basically camped out between the two countries right underneath that international bridge, and potentially another surge of Haitians coming in the next few weeks. So that's something that they wanted to address. And on the violence situation, this also goes both ways. The Mexican officials are really worried about how many American guns are being taken south into Mexico. And also the American officials are worried about human trafficking and how many illicit illegal drugs are coming north. So they both have issues to work on. Secretary of State Blinken today said that he thinks both countries need to rethink their approach to solving these issues.
Of course, law enforcement has a critical role to play in reducing homicides and other serious crimes. But its efforts have to be matched by investments in growing economic opportunity, particularly for underserved communities and regions.
Secretary Blinken went on to say whether it's drugs or migration surge or violence, he says that a lot of these issues are tied back to the economic situation. He hopes both sides at least understand that and take steps to try to address those critical roots of these problems.
Panama's judicial and forensic authorities declared an emergency due to a large number of asylum seekers' corpses found in the jungle of the Darien Gap region, as thousands of people continue to make the dangerous journey to reach the United States. The Legal Medicine and Forensic Institute has registered over 50 deaths in the Panamanian border zone. The only two morgues in the area are overwhelmed, and the authorities are requesting international assistance for the creation of a humanitarian cemetery. The director of the institute believes that the number of corpses is only going to increase, with forecasts of over 20,000 people set to attempt to cross the dangerous jungle from Colombia. Panamanian authorities reiterated that the northern border is experiencing a humanitarian crisis. Over 88,000 asylum seekers arrived in the territory, and different sources have registered violent attacks against them, as well as fatal accidents and diseases.
The corpses we find can be someone's brother, someone's father, someone's son, and it is our obligation to handle those bodies in a humane, respectful, ethical manner, and within the legal framework. That is why, together with 6 CDR, we are working on the handling of corpses, the burial according to international standards and protocols. For the Institute of Forensic Medicine, our response capabilities have been overwhelmed. That is why we are going to propose the support we require with forensic experts, with the help in the design of a humanitarian cemetery, in order to give Christian burial to all these people.
The southern border is preparing for a massive migrant surge. A new report shows the Department of Homeland Security was made aware in July that thousands of Haitian migrants are heading to the U.S. No action has been taken because, yet again, the Biden administration is asleep at the wheel. What will these border states do? Let's ask Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So first of all, I think that it's a surprise for people to find out, or at least for a lot of folks to find out, that Homeland Security knew the Haitian migrant surge was coming. Why wasn't there more done in terms of preparation?
Well, I think we have to think about this in a different way. They're not trying to stop the illegal immigration. They're inviting it. So we all think that if they knew about it, they do something about it. They knew about it and they didn't do anything about it because they apparently want as much illegal immigration as they can get during the Joe Biden administration. They've made that very clear from day one, and their policies match what's actually happening, which is we have the largest influx of immigration we've ever had. And so it's hard to argue that this is not exactly what they want.
So what can the state of Texas do? People have been asking now, where can border states try to fill in the gaps. Obviously, there are limitations. It's not the federal government. We're talking about an international border, but Texas does border Mexico, as does the United States, of course. So what happens? What can you do?
So it's a pretty hard question. We've never been, I don't think we've ever been in a position where the federal government appears to be operating in complete violation of the federal law against its own people. And so we're suing them. We've been successful in court, but then we get these orders like the Stay in Mexico program. They're supposed to re-implement that after we went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And yet it doesn't seem like they follow federal law, which comes from Congress, or they follow even court orders. And so we're in a very interesting time. And so now you've got this question, what can states do? And we have a Supreme Court precedent that says that supposedly we can't do much if the federal government has laws about it. If they don't enforce them, we're supposed to sit on the sidelines, which is very frustrating and also detrimental to our state.
Top U.S. officials headed to Mexico City today to talk high-level security with the Mexican government. Turns out the border czar, Kamala Harris, didn't go, which is pretty fascinating considering she's supposed to be overseeing the government's response to this. Here is the State Department Press Secretary Ned Price on that visit. Wanted to have you respond to it.
We believe we are due for an updated look at our bilateral security cooperation, we need an approach that addresses the concerns and the priorities of both governments. And this will really be one of the core elements of the discussions tomorrow.
Is that going to do anything?
I didn't even know what he said. It made no sense. It didn't seem very vague, and I don't expect to change. This immigration issue has been with us since day one of the Biden administration, and they've done nothing to improve it. They've only done things to make it worse, including getting rid of people at the head that could have helped. And apparently, this is what they want.
It's also remarkable. We have some footage of a Mexican cartel gunmen were apparently waving. They had AK-47s and were taunting National Guard soldiers at the border. I mean, you're the Attorney General of the state of Texas. What kind of actual security challenge does it pose when you have a border that is this porous for your state and for the whole country?
No, it's pretty bad. I don't think we've ever seen a president just let the border go like this. And so not only let the border go, but he's allowing these cartels tremendous access to our country. Not just to the border states. I mean, they clearly have access to the border states to import fentanyl from China, to import as many people as they can get to the border, to allow all kinds of other trafficking to go on. But the reality is the cartels are going to gain access to the entire country through this process, and the Biden administration is looking the other way and maybe even helping them do it.
Fox News has confirmed top U.S. officials will travel to Mexico City today to hold high-level security talks with the Mexican government.
We believe we are due for an updated look at our bilateral security cooperation, we need an approach that addresses the concerns and the priorities of both governments. And this will really be one of the core elements of the discussions tomorrow.
But it's not clear, tomorrow being today, it's not clear if that means the crisis at the border is on the agenda and keeping, security down there. Here to discuss, former acting DHS Secretary and Heritage Foundation visiting fellow Chad Wolf. Chad, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Well, there's something that apparently they're going to talk about, and that is the Remain in Mexico policy. Biden administration got rid of it pretty much on day one, and the Mexican government didn't like it, but the U.S. Supreme Court has instructed the administration, sorry, you don't like it, you got to put it back in place. So they're going to try to figure out a way around that, aren't they?
Well, I think they should. Certainly, the Biden administration is under a direction to restart that program. And look, at the end of the day, that program is good for Mexico because it allows and it starts to stem the flow of migrants into their southern border through Mexico and into the United States. It's not only good for the United States, it's good for Mexico as well, because these illegal migrants that are coming up are straining their social systems, their public safety nets and the like. And what we saw at the end of the Trump administration, when that program was working, Mexico started to see less and less of illegal migration into their country as well. So it's a win-win for both. But you're exactly right. The United States needs to restart that program, and obviously Mexico needs to devote some resources to it as well.
Apparently, the president of Mexico is going to press the U.S. government officials who are there, including our Attorney General and Department of Homeland Security Secretary. You've got to send more money to these poor countries because that's the root cause. The reason they're going to the United States is because you've got money and they don't. And we've heard from Kamala Harris that that's apparently a priority as well. The big question is, how big a check do we have to write them to stay there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, foreign assistance to all of these countries have been going on for years and decades. So just simply giving them more money without holding them accountable to what they say they need to do, the reforms they need to make, is not a winning solution. What we did in the Trump administration was we provided them foreign assistance, but we had a discussion and agreement very specifically on what they were going to spend that on, and we made sure that it benefited the United States as well. And then we hold them accountable. And if they didn't make those reforms or they didn't implement those security procedures, then we decided to withhold some of that funding. So you can't simply give them a blank check and hope that they will institute the reforms or do the things that you ask them to do. You've got to hold them accountable at the end of the day, but they need to start doing their fair share on, particularly when we talk about the security aspect of that illegal migration.
Right, exactly. Well, we appreciate you starting your day with us. I know you're going to be busy later today. You're going to be one of the speakers at the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit that is streaming live on Fox Nation today. What's your topic today?
Well, we're going to be talking obviously about border security and immigration. We're going to be talking about making sure that we give the protections to those who truly need it, those coming up from Central America, South America, and all over the world that are being persecuted at the end of the day. And how do we do that safely, but more importantly, efficiently, so that we root out that fraud in the system and that we don't have this catch and release system that we see today.
All right. We look forward to that. Chad Wolf, thank you very much for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
So NBC News reporting that our DHS Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, said that he had asked DHS officials whether they were prepared for up to 400,000 people to try to enter the United States in October if that sort of remain in, or if that Title 42 ability to expel people based on COVID rule that was handed down by the Trump administration, if that were lifted by the courts. And so that's basically what we have is our Homeland Security Secretary predicting 400,000 people are going to try to come into the country in just October alone if that Title 42 COVID policy goes away.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct on that issue. I'm going to take umbrage with a lot of the things that he says, but on that issue, he's absolutely correct. If Title 42 goes away and we're not able to expel people immediately under this health code that CDC has recognized, then we're going to just open up the floodgates because everybody is going to be released. I mean, right now, at least we're expelling about 40% of the people, which is kind of holding at bay this huge surge that's just waiting to come into the United States. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Haitians alone. Peru has reported that over 60,000 Haitians are passing through their country right now as we speak, coming to our southwest border. And that's just from one nation. Again, we're dealing with nations throughout the world. So yes, if that Title 42 were to go away, we're going to be in serious trouble, but we're also going to be in trouble because of the policies. So if we didn't have Title 42, when President Trump was able to control the border, we didn't have Title 42. He was able to control it through very savvy negotiations that he was able to do with Mexico. Mm-hmm. He went into Mexico and he demanded that they become true border security partners. And they did it because he was threatening tariffs. And those tariffs were greater than the amount of money that the cartels were able to make in their smuggling organizations. So the economy was going to take a hit. The Mexican economy was going to take a hit. So they agreed to implement the migrant protection protocols or Remain in Mexico program, which is what allowed us to drive illegal immigration to lows. So even if the Title 42 were to go away, which I don't want to see it go away, mm-hmm. but if it were to go away, the Biden administration would be able to control this through policy, which, by the way, doesn't cost the taxpayer a cent. He's not going to, because he's going to continue to appease his base, and his base wants open borders.
Can we talk about, yeah, of course, and it's the messaging that Biden has been handing down from the beginning. I mean, it's been all talk of asylum and letting folks stay, and the messaging matters. You know, it definitely matters. I mean, people knew under Trump that it was going to be a lot tougher than it was under Obama. We had Dennis Michael Lynch saying it could have been even tougher under Trump. He didn't like some of his softer language on DACA. But there's no question there was a big difference between Trump's rhetoric about the southern border than we've seen with Biden, who seems to be telegraphing the border's open, notwithstanding what Mayorkas says. Mayorkas says, fear not, the border's closed. In fact, we've got that soundbite. It's number 3. Here's DHS Secretary Mayorkas.
We heard the sheriff say it, the governor say it, and the migrants I spoke to say it. They are coming across because they believe they will be welcomed under the Biden administration. You said yourself 3 weeks ago, we're not saying don't come, we're saying don't come now. President Biden had a stronger message later, but the messages are mixed at best, Mr. Secretary.
Martha, good morning. The message is quite clear. Do not come. The border is closed. The border is secure.
Okay, so he says from this temperature-controlled studio, unlike you and your guys, you tell me what the truth is.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at the amount of drugs that are on the streets today. That shows that the border isn't secure. Look at the number of people that have been able to enter the country illegally and evade apprehension. That shows the border isn't secure. Look at the number of people that we're releasing with these NTAs under the catch and release program. That shows the border isn't secure. Criminal cartels listen to actions. They don't care about words. They're always going to watch the actions. And the actions of this administration is screaming loud and clear, our border is open. Go ahead and advertise your services throughout the world, because if they come, we're going to release them. That's the reason why we're seeing numbers that we've just never seen before in the history of the Border Patrol.
Mm-hmm. And now on top of, the COVID threat and just the criminality that comes, there's no question when you have this number of migrants crossing the southern border, whether they want to surround themselves with children that aren't really theirs in order to get in, there is an unhealthy criminal element in it. You also have to worry about the terrorism. And I think about it in the context of Afghanistan, because you got these two dueling crises in America where our Joint Chiefs Chairman, our Defense Secretary, everybody's saying we're less safe now as a result of Afghanistan, that there's no question Al-Qaeda is going to be back in Afghanistan trying to plot attacks, and we could see one within the next 12 months on the homeland. At the same time, you've got his name, Rodney Scott, right? He's a Border Patrol chief, and he comes out and says this about the terror threat that we're now looking at.
We have nation state threats. We have terrorist threats we can't get into in this type of a forum, but they're real, they exist, and they want to come across that border. Statistically, it always includes rapists, murderers, potential terrorists. Every single year, to think that there's not just as bad or worse people in those getting away would be naive.
Okay, so this is what Trump was called a racist for over and over when he said that, when he came down the escalator and said, "I'm running." They're not sending their best people. They're sending rapists. They're sending murderers. Well, that's true. I mean, it's true. It doesn't mean that every single person crossing the southern border is one of those things, but we do need to worry about it.
We have a responsibility to know who is coming into this country. We have a responsibility to vet all of the people that are coming into this country. And when you have illegal immigration at the levels that we currently have, we can't do that. Let alone know who's coming across that are getting away. But all of these people that are coming across into our country, we can't do background checks on them in their own countries. We don't have access to their databases like what we do here in the United States. If somebody has a criminal record here in the United States, we're going to know about it because we fingerprint them. But we're not going to know about their criminal records in their own countries because we don't have that access. And we, of course, don't have the time to vet the number of people that are crossing the borders illegally, even if we are lucky enough to take them into custody. So, Chief Scott, he's absolutely correct. And then, of course, when you look at the 151 nations, I can tell you, I don't know of a single apprehension from Britain. I don't know of one from France, Germany, Italy. We don't know of apprehensions from those locations because those are well-developed countries. Those are countries that are friendly to the United States. The United Nations identifies 195 countries. Officially, they identify 195. We're apprehending people from 151 of those countries. A lot of those countries are not friendly to the United States, and those countries, as a government as a whole, they want to do harm to the United States. So yes, it is a very dangerous, when you consider the number of people and the number of countries, it is very dangerous to the American public what is coming in from the southwest border.
Back with us now, former DHS Acting Deputy Secretary is Ken Cuccinelli. Ken, it's great to have you back on. Okay, we've got Secretaries Blinken and Mayorkas. They're going to Mexico to talk about border security. And then we've got the 10 Republican governors and border officials saying, you know what? You can stop your border crisis now. You've turned the border into a war zone with international drug cartels. Just bring back what Trump was doing and bring back those policies. What do you say?
Well, that's absolutely true. And people now realize how much hard work went into putting those policies in place and then effectuating them, actually implementing them, all while being sued by all of the folks who are in office now as allies. And they worked. You know, you heard the governors talk about the MPP program, the Remain in Mexico program, very effective. You also heard about the consequences from Governor DeWine of Ohio, talking about the extraordinary fentanyl deaths in Ohio, which comes virtually entirely over that southern border. And it is an open door now for the drug cartels. And as much money as they're making on drugs, they may even be making more money now on human trafficking. So the governors are targeted in the right space. But I would say this for the governors. There are things they can do, particularly Texas. You know, Governor Abbott was leading the way here. And Texas is being invaded, and they can treat it as such and return these people back across the river. They don't have to keep begging and pleading the federal government. They have power in the Constitution to deal with this directly.
Let's stay on that for a second. By the way, Ohio is saying, the governor is saying, Mike DeWine is saying, at least 80% of our overdose deaths every week are caused by fentanyl. And you had the Texas governor saying the amount of fentanyl caught by just Texas alone is enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the states of Texas, California, and New York. Let's talk about what you just said about Texas can return people on their own, right? Is that true? Because the White House, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so not to be a law professor, but Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution includes a guarantee by the federal government to protect every state against invasion. It's hard to argue that Texas is not being invaded. Now, this would be a harder argument for Ohio to make, but not Texas. So Article 1, Section 10 then gives the state power to defend itself. And in this case, all we're talking about is moving these people back across the border, and you're not using immigration authority. You're using the power given to states in Article 1, Section 10 to repel an invasion. And the federal government not only isn't doing its job there, it's inviting these people in.
So put out the word.
So the states on the border can respond.
Then put out the word to all the border states, go to the Constitution, cite that section, and then just turn them back. Because we've got an activist, a Central American activist in Guatemala, quoted in the Los Angeles Times saying, the U.S. will soon have 1 million people all at once at the border. I can't even comprehend that number. You know what I mean?
It is hard to imagine, but honestly, 200,000 for more than 1 month in a row is hard to imagine. We're starting to see what it looks like in that Del Rio Bridge pictures that Fox in particular got a lot of good pictures there where the administration was trying to keep the media away. They're trying to shut down the story, and yet it gets worse and worse and worse. And honestly, if the states on the border don't start conducting self-help, they're going to be hurt the worst, and they have the power and the authority to do this.
I got to get into this because NBC is now reporting that White House officials are saying that they knew about the migrants coming to the Del Rio Bridge back in June and July, but they couldn't do anything about it because progressives had stopped them. You know what? Progressives, we're the United States of America. It's not just your America. Your final word.
Well, my final word is we stopped caravans. We stopped caravans in cooperation with Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico. Now, they had to be pushed into that cooperation, but there was a year and a half where there were no caravans. We stopped them. They can stop them too if they're committed to doing it.
Yeah, they're deadlocked in fights with bureaucratic infighting about this. Okay, Ken Cuccinelli, it's good to see you. Come back soon.
For Manuel and his young son, this is home. Fleeing from El Salvador, he's been here for more than 45 days. He's one of nearly 2,000 people living in this encampment in Reynosa, Mexico, hoping to get across the Texas border, just steps away.
No estoy aquí porque yo quiero.
You're not here because you want to be here.
Sino porque fui amenazado por mi propia familia.
It's because you were threatened. Manuel asked us not to use his full name or show his face for fear of violence from the cartels, which aid workers like Felicia Rangel-Sampanaro say have fought over this city for years as a trafficking route.
People are afraid to leave this encampment because they're afraid to get kidnapped. Oh, they will get kidnapped. One person's worth between $2,000 and $6,000. So if you leave this encampment, yes, you will be kidnapped. And when you say the different gangs are watching and monitoring this area, yes. I mean, are they watching now? Yes. There are nearly 2,000 people inside this encampment. You can see them lining up for basic necessities like food and water. But now they say the real threat is COVID. Con tanta gente acá en este campamento, ¿tienes miedo del COVID? Do you have, with so many people here in this encampment, are you afraid of COVID?
Pues sí, sí se teme siempre, ¿verdad?
You're always afraid of it.
No podemos guardar distancia mucho.
You can't really maintain distance.
Pero sí vivimos con ese miedo siempre.
But you're always living with that fear.
A fear that many here say could soon get worse, since basic sanitation, like washing your hands or showering, is hard to come by.
Para poder bañarnos pagamos 10 pesos. So to shower, you have to pay 10 pesos just to shower. Estamos expuestos, todos estamos expuestos.
Aid workers like Felicia say they've seen a surge in COVID cases in recent weeks, with up to 150 people per day testing positive.
At one point, in each family, there was at least one person who had COVID. The kids had COVID, the moms had COVID, pregnant women had COVID. Everyone had it.
It's a problem that traces back to a policy called Title 42, a section of U.S. health law first enforced by the Trump administration and still in place under President Biden. It essentially shuts down the Mexican border to many asylum seekers, leaving them to wait and face a shortage of COVID tests while they do.
What's the worst case scenario if you run out of COVID tests and simply cannot bring enough here? The worst case scenario has already been happening. Ambulances have been called multiple times to this plaza because people can't breathe. So to be clear, most of the people in this encampment do not have asylum or legal cases pending. Most are here just waiting for the border to open. Yes, so this is hope you're looking at. This is what hope looks like right now. This is what hope looks like right now.
Hope to one day find a home better than this.
No tengo a dónde ir.
And you don't have any place to go. Así que realmente esta es la última chance. This is the last chance.
Morgan Radford, NBC News, Reynosa, Mexico.
All right, we're staying in Texas, where border agents have encountered more migrants than they have in years. And today, 10 Republican governors met at the border to talk about solutions. NewsNation correspondent Marky Martin joining us live from McAllen, Texas. And Marky, what were the biggest takeaways today?
Hey, Nicole, yeah, this group traveled here as a group together to really double down on their criticism of what they see as Biden's border crisis. Now, these governors came from a wide array of states. You had Oklahoma, Arizona, Wyoming, Idaho, just to name a few. But of course, at the very helm of this ship, at the helm of this meeting today, was Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who you know has been a staunch critic of the Biden administration and their approach to immigration this year in 2021. Now, aside from the usual talking points that we have heard since January, this group of 10 governors came together to provide 10 action items, if you will, not plans, but actual action that they are taking to help alleviate some of the pressure being felt along these border cities. And that included everything from expanding Title 42 public health restrictions to calling on the Biden administration to continue this very border wall that I'm standing next to that was started under the Trump administration, to deploying even more federal law enforcement agents right here to this part of the country. Take a listen.
This is
one of, if not the most urgent matter that we're facing in the United States at this time. And it's time for the Biden administration to wake up and get on the job and do its job to protect the sovereignty and safety of the United States of America.
Yeah, Governor Abbott not mincing words today. And if you notice, a lot of those governors were actually from Middle America. And a lot of people probably wonder, well, you know, how exactly are they impacted? Well, they came forward. They said their border issues look different, right? They said at the top of their pyramid of concerns was fentanyl and the crisscrossing of the drug across the country. And in fact, Governor Abbott today saying that this year alone, Texas DPS alone has apprehended enough fentanyl to kill every American living in Texas, California, and New York. Nicole.
That is terrifying, Marky. We know you've been on this assignment since early this morning. You were in between live hits on Morning in America when you witnessed several migrant crossings and apprehensions.
Yeah, it was before the sun even came up, Nicole, and we have some video this morning that we took. This was about 5:30. We were actually getting ready for our first live shot this morning here in McAllen, and we started to notice all this activity, Border Patrol vans coming through, a flurry of flashlights. So we went over, and you had all these agents starting to apprehend these migrants. You can see these 3 adults on the ground, but if you take a look at that van in the video, every seat was full of migrants, so probably about 10 to 13. And then about 8 o'clock, as we were getting ready for our very last hit, 2 migrants jumped over this border wall, the chain link fence of the border wall, ran through the thicket, and they were eventually apprehended, and then it was on to the very next group. But that kind of illegal activity, Nicole, exactly what those governors were honing in on today.
Yeah, certainly. All right, Marky, thank you for that.
14 before the hour, 3 cabinet members heading to Mexico today to talk about immigration. New poll shows that voters disapprove by 67% handling of the Mexican border, including immigration. Former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer with us now, Fox News contributor. Ari, nice to see you.
Thank you.
COVID cable is over. You are out of your basement. Noted, right? So you got Blinken, Garland, and Mayorkas in Mexico City. Kamala Harris is not there. They're going to want money. What are we going to give them? How do we solve it?
There is no solving it unless you get back to basics. And the basic thing is the tone the president sets. And when the president sets a tone saying the only way to come to America is to do so legally, it tends to intimidate and scare people so they follow the rules. When the language is permissive, when the language is these people, we welcome them here, they should come legally, they're going to flood us. And that's what's happened.
Well, the other thing is when you say we're going to focus on root causes, root causes is a way to kick the can down the road. Well, and you're not actually doing that. If I were Kamala Harris, and I'd been given that assignment, I wouldn't let these 3 go there without me. There's no way I would allow that to happen. But I also would have a new policy.
Well, her absence, her lack of leadership is palpable. Everybody sees it. But look, when it comes to root causes, the root cause is how great America is. People come here because we're a nation of laws. People come here for economic reasons, for freedom. But if that's the case, and we'll never change that, that should be the root cause. You cannot say to people, the first thing you do when you come to America is to violate the rule of law. I welcome immigrants to this country. Come here legally.
So they are looking for more investment in poor countries in Central America.
It will make a difference.
I mean, that's the request they're going to make of us.
Yeah.
But this administration might go for that.
Because they think that's the root cause.
So far.
They think the root cause is what's wrong with the rest of the world. The root cause is what's right with America. We are the magnet, and we should all take tremendous pride in the fact that people want to come to this country. But that's why you have to have laws. That's why there's nothing wrong with the wall. That's why you want people to come here in accordance with our rules. That's the start of being an American. Follow the law, follow the rules, and the sky is the limit.
I think the other reason that Americans would be frustrated to give more money is that the corruption is just rampant.
Yes.
And Americans are generous. And if we thought that for our Southern Hemisphere that this would actually make a difference, then maybe they would be willing to do it.
There's not enough money in the world to solve the problems in some of these third world countries. It's just not going to solve it. That is not the root cause. That is an excuse. And the answer is, frankly, it's what Donald Trump did. This comes down to tone and rhetoric. The Democrats said it was racist. The Democrats said it was wrong. It was actually effective, and it was compassionate because it makes people come here properly.
Can I ask him about Bill Melugin?
Yeah, do it.
So Bill Melugin showed us these pictures yesterday. That you had air fire coming across the southern border, and who are they aiming at? They could actually end up hurting one of our people, and then what?
Yeah, and the report I heard said that it was not really aimed at anything. They were just firing. I mean, this is the depravity on the other side of the border when you have lawlessness, when you have smugglers. And that's, again, why people will put themselves in the hands of smugglers if they think they can get in.
It was remarkable stuff to watch. You mentioned Tony, your answer prior to that. Here's what a high-ranking security official apparently said from, I guess it was the State Department. Are you ready for this? Our high-level security dialogue is modernizing our security framework. It's making it much more holistic to confront the existing and new challenges and enhancing our cooperation with Mexico and the priorities that both nations share. End quote. You could contrast that with the former tone that we had for 4 years.
A multisyllabic statement like that will definitely deter someone from coming into America illegally.
Right. Diagram that sentence.
State Department gobbledygook.
Yeah,
That's what we need along the border.
Holistic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you. Good to see you in person, indeed.
I like this little island of yours, man.
You will be back, okay?
We love having you.
Thank you.